silent. We're ready to begin. Mizmor le David, Adonai roino esar. Vino de Harvey ale mai menukotin aleini. Nafshi yeshofem Yanekeni vemaglitzet de Cleman Shimon Ham kielek begeitzel mavet Loira rakia kaimadi Shivtecha umishanetecha emayenakamuni The words of the 23rd Psalm, Psalm of David. Adonai is my shepherd, I shall not want, giving me repose in green meadows, leading me beside the still waters to revive my spirit, guiding me on the right path, for that is God's essence. Though I walk through a valley of the shadow of death, I fear no harm, for you are with me. Your staff and your rod comfort me. You prepare a banquet for me in the presence of my foes. You anoint my head with oil, my cup overflows. Surely goodness and kindness shall be my portion all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of Adonai forever. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for coming out. Thank you to all of you at home for tuning in. My name is Rabah from Congregation Sharet Tzedek, and it's my great honor to be here conducting these funeral services for Harvey Pollock, Zichrono Livracha, of blessed memory. He was also known to the Jewish people by his Hebrew name, Chaim Yitzchak ben Shlomo David Besluba Meta, Zichrono Livracha. He was the son of Shlomo and Sluba, of blessed memory, husband, the late Sylvia, of blessed memory, the brother, Gordon Pollock, and Cecile and Monica Wall. Also of Misha Pollock and Myra Kravetsky, of blessed memory, brother-in-law of Lynn Pollock, brother-in-law of Pearl Credenza. The father of Martin Pollock, Laurie Hunter, and also Nathan Pollock and Karin Gloverman, of blessed memory. Father-in-law, Danny Gloverman, Diane Dukas. The grandfather of Adam and the Brockner, Noah and Samantha, Simeon, Kevin, Ethan, Jesse, and Jaden. The great-grandfather of Saul, Mila, Kara, Max, and Sunny. Harvey passed away on Sunday, February 5th, unexpectedly, peacefully in his sleep, at the age of 89. Harvey left this world full of life, still active at work and on family activities. His death reminds us of Moses' death, as presented in Deuteronomy 34:7, where we read, "His eyesight never became poor, and he never lost his physical strength. And you see, at the end of Moses' life, God leans down from the heavens and ends his life with a soft, gentle kiss. This is derived from Deuteronomy 34:5, where most Bibles translate, and I quote, "So Moses, the servant of the Eternal, died there in the land of Moab at the command of the Eternal." But the Hebrew reads, "Al pi Adonai," by the mouth of the Eternal. Hence, the rabbis talk about God kissing Moses at his moment of death. While the decree of death cannot be overruled when our time comes to leave this world, may we all be blessed with God's great compassion and empathy and depart, just like Moses, just like Harvey, with a soft, gentle kiss from God. As we will hear during the eulogies, Harvey Pollock accomplished so many things during his life. We read in Pirkei Avot, a compilation of the ethical teachings from rabbinic tradition. And again, I quote, Ben Zoma said, "Who is wise?" He answers, "He who learns from every man. As it is said, from all who taught me have I gained understanding. Who is mighty? He who subdues his evil inclination. As it is said, he that is slow to anger is better than the mighty, and he that rules his spirit than he that takes a city. Who is rich? He who rejoices in his lot. As it is said, you shall enjoy the fruit of your labors. You shall be happy, and you shall prosper. You shall be happy in this world, and you shall prosper in the world to come. Who is honored? He who honors his fellow human beings. As it is said, for I honor those that honor me, but those who spurn me shall be dishonored." Although this text was written around the beginning of the Common Era, the definitions wise, mighty, rich, and honor were clearly inspired by people like Harvey Pollock of blessed memory. The text doesn't necessarily praise the religious person, but those like Harvey who are always looking for ways to expand their knowledge. People who, like Harvey, recognize that strength in Judaism is one of character and not one of might. People like Harvey, who learn that along with working hard, a person who wants to be happy must be satisfied with what they have. People like Harvey, who understand that only those who honor others are bringing honor to themselves. I had the privilege to know Harvey, both as a congregant and as a dear friend of my father-in-law, the late Ron Myers of blessed memory, with whom Harvey used to share his love for the law and his love for music. And yes, I did have the pleasure of hearing his unique and exquisite whistling skills. In the synagogue, I learned about Harvey's unique handshake. Strong hold, always leaning a little bit to the front, with a soft smile. Not a full smile, a soft one. The big smile will usually come later if you happen to like the jokes I have to share. I learned about his love for the community when he came to shul, it was to connect the community, which is very important for a Jew. The Talmud says that when the Jewish people stood at the foot of Mount Sinai, we were like one person with one goal, to receive the Torah from God. This shows that when people can connect to each other, the unity causes great things to happen. Harvey's love for the law was his way to partner with God, to make great things happen in this world. Harvey understood that God may have created the world, yet we, as human beings, are God's partners in the work of bridging the gap between the world as it is and the world as it should be. A world of justice, a world of peace. There is so much to say about Harvey Pollock, blessed memory. That's why we are going to continue now with two eulogies. The first one is going to be presented by Martin Pollock. The second one by Jaden Pollock, his grandson, on behalf of the grandchildren. So, Martin, I invite you to come forward to eulogize your father.
A lawyer's worst fear is leaving the brief back at the office. This is the last brief, tribute to Harvey Pollock. To all congregated in the sanctuary, to those online at geographical locations near and far, and to those who have reached out by email, text messaging, and voicemail. Thank you for sharing your support and your love for my dear father. Your thoughts mean so much to me. I'm very sad and numb at the untimely loss of a man whose timeliness I took as a constant. Having lost two siblings and our mother, I'm the sole survivor of our nuclear family, and it is a hauntingly lonely, hollow feeling. So I thank you from the bottom of my heart for joining with me as I deliver the last brief honoring my father, my colleague, my partner, my friend, Harvey Pollock. A few months ago, outside his office in the hallway at our office, I looked at my father and posed an out-of-left-field question. Dad, who would you like to deliver your eulogy? There was a pause, and then, with fire blue eyes cast at me, came the direction. You. I was thankful for the confidence he was expressing, just as he had done for so many years of my life, in so many ways and with such elegance and wisdom. He has always been the underpinning of so many of us in his many universes. Family, law, music, whistling with skill beyond belief, adventure, golf, books, and how he loved to eat, without ever being unable to fit his prized clothing, in which he maintained that taut, slim body which kept him looking like a kid. My father liked his weekends, Winnipeg Free Press, CNN, hatching the plan for dinner with one or more friends, executing the plan, and then home to bed to read. He was an avid reader. Perhaps there might be variation on Sunday, but come Monday, the plan was to be in his office, piloting his law practice, which he had built over the years, from a solo start to a litigation domain that saw him as champion of awards for harm that had befallen those who sought his energy, stick-to-it determination, and wonderful and successful outcomes. But as man plans, God laughs. God saw him as a good man deserving a painless, peaceful passage in the comfort of his bed, and called him to his being with a gentle kiss. At some level, my father knew the shape of the future, forecast in a poem entitled In Principio ad Infinitum. He had published in the Manitoban, the University of Manitoba's Students' Union newspaper, on Friday, October 1, 1954, as a 21-year-old student, articulating his philosophy of life and death. It fits our picture today perfectly, and leaves for us the romantic, thoughtful philosopher he was. He was also a performer, and would have loved to know that today his poetry is made public for us all. In Principio ad Infinitum, to an end. What was before the dawn shall be after the dusk. Nothingness but the deepest privation of man's solitude and the sanctity of his hope. He who before birth slumbered in his hope, now after death sleeps in anticipation of that glorious and sacred cloud, which will sweep down in his crypt and carry him to the high as he did from. O God, give the strength, for all the machines and tools of this age will near have that strength of which thou hast bestowed to that small cloud which comes, but seldom goes beyond the level of the earth, since it is held to the surface by the hate, greed, and contempt of our very existence. But if there be such a cloud, and if it does come and go, then I know that there it held him on its way to your abode. My father did not believe in afterlife, but I ascribe to the cloud of hope that he is now traveling, journeying, reuniting. How pleasant and poetic that before my dad received his kiss, my mother came to him in his sleep, took the hand of his soul, and guided them together to a heaven. As my sister once said to him, I'll see you on the other side. Themes of deep love, courage, resilience, kindness, and strike hard, reflected from a truly remarkable character who was steadfast, loyal, principled, and guided by a moral and professional compass. My dad was no ordinary 89-year-old. He never retired from the practice of law, very recently reviewing cases with high-value analysis. He enjoyed the pilot's seat in front of his computer screens, overlooking the landscape of documents populating his desk, maintaining relevance, happily receiving respect and admiration as he dictated instructions to his legal assistant, taking shorthand in protection of his client's legal interests. On a daily basis, he navigated his 2004 prowling sedan to and from the office with a white-knuckle frenzy, with carefree abandon like no ordinary lawyer, 11 years shy of his centenary. He steered his flashy 1971 convertible sports car for all to witness, owning the road. He suffered no criticism of his mechanical skill set. My father's computer password is Bethany Cowboy 88. Homage to his beginnings. Bethany is a town near Minnesota where my grandfather and grandmother, Russian immigrants, settled. They were the only Jews in town. Bethany was where Harvey, Gordon, Myra, Misha, and Cecile picked rocks. Farm kids know that exercise. Where my father learned to cling onto a tractor, loved their horse Barney, and where he watched his father buy and sell cattle and hogs, often as a little boy making the trip into Winnipeg. Harvey learned commerce from a father he loved and adored. I love the story of my grandfather staying up all night in winter to stoke the fire, while Dad and his siblings shared a bed, arranged alternately, head to toe, with the blanket frozen to the wall. But one cannot forget the audience of cows listening to boy Harvey whistle. Whistling was his emotional barometer. Whistling was his instrument. He took it everywhere, or maybe, on the other hand, whistling took him everywhere. My father had a lovely voice, but do you know why he whistled? I'll let you in on a secret. He could not remember the words to a song. So he excelled with the art form in the cow pasture, on the tractor, on farm roads. He was an outlier, and before hitting it big with Romeo Champagne at university, he formed the Lipsomaniacs, and they performed. He memorized every note he whistled and practiced until his lips were chapped. My father won the world's first international whistling championship in Carson City, Nevada, in 1978, followed by a National Film Board production, It's a Hobby for Harvey, by Barry Lang. He was an incredible warbler. The secret ingredient was a high palate and swirl of wind, pitched through pursed lips, mechanized with precision, a honed skill that truly was a gifted voice. His favorite studio was the marble-clad men's restroom at the old Law Courts building. But he also enjoyed the symphony, and on one occasion conducted the Winnipeg Symphony at the Centennial Concert Hall with his newly acquired dancing baton at a special evening in his honor. He loved classical music. Words did not interfere with the purity of the notes. Mozart, Bach, Beethoven, Schubert, Chopin, Rossini, musical courtships. Going to the symphony was a comfort for his soul, and my mother was his soulmate. My father was driven to succeed. He had the thirst of an underdog, boxing moxie, street smarts with loaded barrels of practicality, curiosity, perseverance, and intelligence. He was not an academic thinker. He hired that kind of talent. He was strategic, tactical, logical, analytical, controlled by reason with a cutting-edge intuition. He was smart. Adversaries in the courtroom had work cut out for themselves when Harvey walked in with his briefcase. Who did he represent? Not insurance companies, not banking institutions, not corporate power. He represented the little guy, the powerless, the weak. He gave them voice, and he delivered results. And nothing gave Dad more pleasure than his view of justice. What was right, fair, reasonable, and decent, being aligned in settlement or court judgment. He was never afraid of the courtroom. During the course of 6 decades, it was his workshop. He cultured aspiring lawyers in his boutique law firm to not back down. This an extension of his own backbone. I can honestly say that 9 times out of 10, he got the case right. In the early 1960s, weighing 125 pounds soaking wet, my father morphed into a heavyweight in the Portage la Prairie Queen's Bench courtroom in front of Judge Brian Dixon, who would become Chief Justice of Canada. My dad was teased relentlessly by RCMP, calling him Perry, for Perry Mason, and his secretary, Della, who recorded his trial notes. Back then, the rope still hung. During cross-examination of the chief witness, 30-something Harvey extracted a compulsion in the witness to admit to the murder. Really? To how many lawyers has that happened? Better than Perry Mason, because this real-life client would have been executed. So capable, so solid a mentor, to carry Dad's briefcase was an existential learning experience. Watching him execute the art of cross-examination was precious acquisition of skill and knowledge. He was clever in arranging his cases, seeing the whole picture, knowing the strength and weakness of both sides. No blinders, relentless until he got what he needed. When J.J. Harper was shot and killed on March 9, 1988, J.J.'s brother-in-law, Harry Wood, said, "Get me, Harvey." Affirmation is a combative aphrodisiac. The Wasyamic community had its warrior, and to war my dad went. 5 words of which he knew the answer. Did you print the gun? Set off his firestorm of representation. I cut my teeth on this historically significant case. My dad had fangs cutting through the complexities in the wild jungle of cover-up and thereafter being personally victimized by police personalities seeking revenge for his excellence. Inquest, Aboriginal Justice Inquiry, civil lawsuit, Lyra prosecution, Hughes Commission, perseverance, fortitude, stomach. A book was spawned, The Shooting Death of J.J. Harper, and a television movie where Dad was the prominent lawyer protagonist was produced. The authorities who had attacked him suffered well-deserved criticism. He was Tuffy, owed to his high school nickname. Got that nickname because a friend of his took, without his permission, his eraser. Dad wanted it back. His friend wouldn't give it up. Anyways, it led to a fist fight. He was probably 120 pounds, 150 pounds, maybe less. But he maintained a very good friendship with that person. Now, one of the most profound associations I witnessed as a little boy was with Dave Cushing Sr., Rufus Prince, and Isaac Bulio, the Manitoba Indian Brotherhood leadership, frequenting our living room at 427 Boreham Boulevard. I've been so proud of my father championing the rights of Indigenous people. He was a legal pioneer, and in the process, he was looked down by actors in the profession, casting derogative aspersions for representing Indigenous people. My dad and Dave Cushing were brothers in arms, with similar operating systems. Dave Sr. was the real deal. He taught my father well. Wrongs were to be righted, and constitutional challenges governing hunting and fishing were now in the courts. Legal collaborations were marshaled with constitutional experts. In recognition of my dad's contribution to the advancement of the Indigenous cause, he was honored by the Manitoba Indian Brotherhood with the name Sinakitono. He who interprets difficult meanings. And he was made an honorary chief. I will bet that he was the first Jewish chief. Monty Israels, Harry Walsh, Izzy Greenberg, and his brother Gordon made themselves available to Dad. Thursdays were reserved for the Greenberg firm in Portugal Prairie. I remember as a child hiding as a stowaway in the back of his navy blue Oldsmobile, the Delta 88. He knew I was there, took me halfway down the block, and graciously and lovingly let me out. Harvey was an angel to so many people meeting unfortunate and tragic circumstances. Accidents rendering able-bodied people quadriplegic, paraplegic, dead. He carried them on wings of hope to attain compensatory damages to secure as best as possible the needs of the disabled. With Bob Doyle, in Watkins' case, the legal precedent for tax gross-up in tort law was established in the Supreme Court of Canada to the benefit, literally, of tens of thousands of victims in Canada. Throughout his career, through use of contingency agreements, he carried files creating litigation risk which he managed by his own personal financial risk as he went on the hook for people with no means. My father had cojones, that's Spanish for guts. He provided access to justice, and he made time for everyone. My father had a profound respect for the courts, judges, the Law Society, colleagues, and yes, the police. He believed in law and order and decency. My father was profoundly in love with my mother. She was his soulmate. He adored fatherhood and showered his kids, Nathan, Karen, and me, with unremitting love, no matter what. Dad, how did you do it? Nathan, Karen, Mom, all gone too early, so unfairly. What was your special ingredient in the elixir of coping, adjusting, absorbing God's body blows? You handled yourself with grace, dignity through your pain, searing, unremitting, unearthing the layers of despair. I feel, at the moment when I think of what you endured, is emotionally crippling. Your strength, your courage, perseverance, to soldier through the lost field of dreams was demonstrative. Upbeat, optimistic, never a member of the life-complaining club. My father loved life. He loved his life. How do you pick yourself up from the devastation of losing your 22-year-old son in a car accident, authored by a drunk driver? That's something no one should experience. The love of my mother, support of family and friends, and the practice of law being his medicine cabinet, he went forward to lose a daughter in the prime of her life, and 15 months later, my mother. How was he able to swing out of bed and bear weight? Dad, you were remarkable, resilient, strong. He loved his grandchildren, took pride in their accomplishments. He had a deep love and respect for his son-in-law, Danny. He wanted Danny and I to be happy in our new relationships, and he embraced our new partners, Diane and Lori, with an open heart and able willingness to engage. Now, his computer password was a code of insight. You can tell a lot about a person's character by how they practice law. Traits of fairness, ethics, developing your name, doing good work as you perform God's work. He traveled to Israel. He would speak about Israel. He was a proud member of the Jewish people. He survived through anti-Semitism. He pioneered moving to tuxedo. He was proud of the accomplishments of Jewish people and felt shame for those not at the standard held. This was common amongst people coming from Europe. He was bred in the north end of Winnipeg and came out of McCrae and Boyd Avenues. He attended St. John's High School. He was respectful to his teachers, and he taught his children respect. I was having problems in school from a football-sized teacher who thought it was okay to inflict anti-Semitic commentary at me in class. Quote, "Cheap pen must be made in Israel," was the trope. In February, I finally told my parents, and off they went to a meeting with the offender and senior administrator. I learned from my mother the nugget my daddy emoted. Quote, "If I was your size, I'd kick the shit out of you." Unquote. I never had a problem after that. He was my protector, providing terra firma. He was a rock, solid to the core, and he was true to his belief system. Mom was his love at first glance, and she was his missing piece to the day she left us. When I would venture out on the street, to a restaurant, a store, the courthouse, the convention center, Portage in Maine, literally anywhere downtown, everyone on the street would ask, "How's Harvey?" Say hello to Harvey. So often was this occurring, it became a problem. I needed to write down everyone's name, or I would have to say, "I know he would appreciate hearing from you. Give him a call." Nonetheless, I was his street messenger, and I made sure he received all the greetings. Every greeting of inquiry was absorbed with pride. My parents cultivated a unique group of friends who became aunties and uncles, with extended kids who became extended cousins, and reservoirs of fun. Falcon Lake, West Hawk Lake, socialization on land and water, our own kibbutz, and Hawaii with his group of Winnipeg regulars was an annual treat for them. Friendships were important. Lifelong friendships were rich, cultured in song, dance, theater, a good time, not to fight war. The Jewish people in the world rising from the ashes. His was in a world of opportunity, making opportunity, a better life, to support family, raise children in a safe city, and make sure they knew from where they were coming from. Hebrew school and synagogue attendance were very important. And as I stated to you, he adored my mother. He loved his siblings, and he cared about each nephew and niece. Even when viewpoints differed, he loved his friends. I was literally with my father in the office 37 and a half years. At times there were difficulties, but what an honor to be guided by a father. It was important for my dad to feel good in clothes and to gown himself in quality that lasts. And he did, as he was proud to still don his suits tailored in the 1980s and 90s. As his beloved nephew Avram wrote to me, he said about my dad, he had a flair for fashion and loved nice things. We shopped at Al Sprints for suits and Milton Rabinovich for shoes. In the long run, Uncle Harvey was the smarter one, as he never put on a pound and could wear his wedding suit till the present day. Whereas we all had to upsize every few years. As part of his dapper, he used fountain pens and a blotter to sign letters and documents. Old school. He was adept at using the iPad and computer. He was complimentary to all when he approved of their style. And when he didn't approve, you knew it. He once ordered me to go home, to change, for wearing to the office when I was an articling student, white pants and a navy blue blazer. He said to me, "Go home. You look like a sailor." The palette of Harvey's life was a cascade of moving color, rich, texturized. He was a man in motion, forward motion. He accelerated to stop signs, and he accelerated from them. On Friday, last Shabbat, he made pickerel dinner for us. Where he loved to be, his house on Ramsgate. We played cards, sharing a pot of tea. "Dad, when I left you, you told me you loved me. I still hear the notes of your voice." Harvey's highway to heaven was Sunday, February 5, propelled pain-free in his sleep in the comfort of his bed. Somehow God comforts me. In the end, or the beginning, I like to think that a crowd of angels joined my father as his backup group as he whistled his way from one life to the next. I'm sure everyone in heaven was mesmerized. Beautiful words.
I would like to invite Jay to the microphone.
Hello, everyone. For those of you who do not know me, I'm Jaden, Harvey's youngest grandchild. I'll be speaking on behalf of the grandchildren and great-grandchildren. When I learned of my Zeta's passing on Monday morning, I was in disbelief. To be honest, I still am in disbelief. I was certain that he was going to live until he was 110. For any human, 89 years old seems like an appropriate age to pass on. However, my Zeta was built a little differently. It is uncommon to see an individual walk as fast, eat as much, and work as hard as my Zeta Harvey. I think everyone in this room can agree with me when I say that Harvey went out on his own terms. He worked full-time until the day he passed away. He was healthy, he was fully there,
both mentally and physically. He passed away in his own bed, peacefully in his sleep. He even got to eat A&W as his final meal. A death is never easy to cope with. However, I believe we should all feel at peace with my Zeda's departure. It is impossible to put into words just how much my Zeda meant to the people in his life, whether it was family, friends, work circles, or simple acquaintances. His presence was always felt. My Zeda had a unique and special relationship with each of his grandchildren and great-grandchildren. It was always so comforting knowing that no matter the circumstances, he always had my back. He was extremely proud of me regarding my career, my athletics, but most importantly, who I have become as a person. I know that all of his grandchildren felt the exact same way. I had a wholesome conversation with my cousin Noah just a couple days ago. He dissected the phrase, rest in peace, and finally came to understand its meaning. As successful as a life as Harvey lived, he dealt with an incomprehensible amount of grief. He lost his son Nathan in 1982, his daughter Karen in 2009, and his beloved wife Sylvia in 2011. The grueling sorrow and heartache that my grandfather carried with him over these past 40 years are finally over. It is encouraging to know that he can now rest in peace without carrying this unimaginable amount of pain in his heart. He can now be laid to rest next to his family members whom he missed so dearly. I have countless memories with my Zeda that I will always cherish. Playing pool and eating White House, in that order because let's be honest, he would not let me touch the felt of a snooker table with most ribbed fingers. Watching baseball at ridiculously high volumes, and going to watch his great-grandson Saul's hockey games are times that I will never forget. I was lucky enough to spend time with my Zeda in Hawaii last spring, and I can tell you that that trip was a blast. My Zeda was exceptional at communicating. He always answered his home phone, and if he wasn't home, he was sure to answer his cell phone. It took him a few years to figure out what FaceTime was. In the preliminary stages of him figuring out FaceTime, he would answer as if it were a normal call, and all I would see was the inside of his hairy ear. But I'd say for someone who was in his late 80s, he was quite impressive with using technology. Eventually, he was able to figure out the new tech, and we would FaceTime regularly. He never hesitated to call the important people in his life just to check in and see how they're doing. I became frustrated with my Zeda because he would write the passwords for all of his devices in a notebook, but he wouldn't specify the devices. So he'd be sitting here with a book of about 150 passwords, trying to get them logged into his Bridge account, his iPhone, his iPad, his laptop, but we could never remember which password to use. My Zeda Harvey also never understood the concept of lines. We would go grocery shopping together sometimes, and when it was time to pay, he would just skip the line and go right to the phone. Also, if we were at a restaurant and the food was taking too long, he wouldn't hesitate to walk into the kitchen and not only ask the chef where his food is, but why it's taking so long. With all the joking aside, it is remarkable what my Zeda Harvey was able to accomplish throughout his career. He's the greatest whistler to ever live and became one of the most prominent lawyers in the province of Manitoba. He was a pivotal person for the Indigenous community, and if you've not read the book Cowboys and Indians by Gordon Sinclair, I highly recommend you check it out. I'd like to extend my sincerest gratitude to everyone who has shown support in the wake of the sad news of my grandfather. Let this be a time to celebrate the life of a charismatic, confident, unique, intelligent, and powerful individual, the whistling lawyer, Harvey Pollock. Thank you.
Thank you, Martin. Thank you, Jaden. Such beautiful words. In the memory of Harvey Pollock, be a source of blessing and comfort. Amen. I would like to invite everyone to rise now for the memorial prayer that the Rabah. Malera kami shoche mameroi mi hametzei menucha nekuna takat kafei hashechi ומעלות קדושים קדושים וטהורים, כזוהר הרקיע המאזינים, עדני שמעת, עדני שמעת, חיים יצחק, בן שלמה דוד וסלובה מתה, שהלך לעולמו, בעבור אשר מתפללים, מיד הצקרת נשמתו, בגן עדן, בגן עדן תהי מנוחתו, לכם על הרחמים, אסתי לאיו בסדר כנעם לעולמים, וצרור בצרור החיים, החיים את נשמתו, אדוני ונחלתו, וינוח ושלום. על משכבו ונאמר אמן. Exalted, compassionate God, grant infinite rest in your sheltering presence among the holy and pure, the soul of Harvey Pollock, who has gone to his eternal home. Merciful One, we ask that our loved one find perfect peace in your eternal embrace. May his soul bound up in the bond of life, may he rest in peace. And let us all say, Amen. You may be seated. A few announcements in a few minutes. We are going to proceed in caravan fashion to the Sheriff Zedek Memorial Park, located on Armstrong Avenue and Main Street. If you're coming with us in the cemetery, please remember to turn on your four-way flashers. And also please remember to stop at red lights and stop signs. After burial, we're going to proceed to the meal of consolation, and that is going to be at Temple Shalom, located at 1077 Grant Avenue. If there are any people who may find difficult to handle the stairs at Temple Shalom, then you will need to come through the Temple Shalom Gardens. Once you arrive, please call the office, 204-452-3711. Again, 204-452-3711. That's the Sheriff Zedek number. And then we will send someone from our staff to meet you at the back door of Wilton Street to help you access the elevator. Shiva will be observed at 86 Ramsgate Bay, Thursday, 7 to 9 p.m., with the marriage service being chanted at 7 p.m. And then Saturday, 7 to 9 p.m. with Marib at 7 p.m. and Sunday, 1 to 3 p.m. Everybody's invited to come visit the family during those 3 days of Shiva. Donations in Harvey's memory may be made to any of the following or your charity of choice, of course. The Nathan Pollock Fund at the Sheriff Zedek Synagogue, the Carnegie Gloverman Endowment Fund, the St. Boniface General Hospital Foundation, or to the Harvey Pollock Live Modern Memory Fund at the Jewish Foundation of Manitoba. At this point, I would like to invite everyone to rise, and I would like the pallbearers to assume their places alongside the coffin. I would ask everyone to stay where you are, the way we are going to do it. I'm going to walk in front of the coffin. The pallbearers are going to roll out the coffin all the way to the hearse. Immediate family is going to follow first, and then everyone can follow behind the coffin. Once you exit the building, please proceed directly to your transportation. Thank you everyone for coming out. Thank you everyone.